Buster was to me, he was everything. You know, I looked up to him and Dawson Burns, still do Dawson daily, but Buster's story was, he came from nothing and cowboyed and was so well respected, and everything that he had was all a dream to me, stuff that I wanted and still want, but the only way he got them was through the horse, you know, and through cutting and a horse and a cow. And I always thought that was pretty cool and he used to even say that, you know, cutting was unbelievable to him because he loved, you know, he was a cowboy and his skills got him everything that he had. You know, it allowed him to ranch one day. I moved out there when I was a sophomore, and I didn't start showing until I was a junior, so 2006. And yeah, I met Dawson and they just kind of became like family to me.
So you went out there by yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, Dad. In fact, I think I got to drive like a 90 model Suburban out there, and I didn't have a driver's license, but they did let me go and just ended up staying. I was more of a mature kid, you could say. A lot of people laugh at that, but I loved being out there. I loved getting up early and drinking coffee with the guys, and if you knew Buster, just to hear him talk about anything, he was so educated and he was just brilliant.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of those things that you picked up from him.
There's a million sayings that he would say daily that definitely stick out in my mind, but now they mean a lot more to me now that I'm more mature and have a place and business, and they make more sense now. Then as a kid, you know, I knew they meant something, but it's funny now that now I understand a lot of them. A good saying that he used to always say was, you know, a good cowboy knows when to ride up, knows when to pull up, and when to shut up. and I think a person can take that about in any industry that they want to, you know.
And he said that a lot?
Well, to me mostly. Yes.
That's why it stuck with you.
That's exactly right. Another one was talking about how he'd rather have a horse that said I will instead of I can. And basically that, you know, and that goes for people too. One that's willing to put in the work or willing to do what you ask or willing to do their job and not just because they can. You know, there's a lot of talented horses out there that don't go on to be great because they don't have that will, you know, and then that didn't mean as much to me as it does now that I've been on my own and trained for several years. And it's funny how that you get a horse that says I will, boy, it makes a horse trainer look very special. When I quit rodeoing and decided that, hey, I think I want to try to be a horse trainer and try this cutting world, and right before I left, he told me something that may not be a saying, but it sure come back around and means a lot to me now. But he said there was two things that he wanted to tell me. One was never be scared of change. He said there's a lot of great trainers in this day and age, and the horses are changing, the trainers are changing, the industry's changing. So he said never be scared of change, but he said the most important one is if you ever want to be on the front page cover of one of them cutting horse chatters, he said there's only one way to do it, and he said the common denominator in all those magazines is the cow. And if you look back at any magazine on the cutting horse chatter, there's always a cow on the front page. And no matter what we do with this training, it has to be about the cow. And now that I've gone on a little bit in my short time, it definitely means a lot. Because if you don't train these horses with a cow, or it's not all about the cow, well, you're going to get beat real quickly. Another good saying that he used to say all the time: if you ever feel confused, stop and back up. And it's so funny how true that is, because training these horses, it can get confusing at times, and maybe a lot harder for some than others, but it definitely, that's a great saying, and honestly it goes into life. You know, if you're ever in a spot where you feel like it's just going to stop and back up. He always said there was 3 steps of training a good show horse, and he said the first one is you see if these horses are cow horses, you train them to be cow horses, and the second step is make them a cutting horse, and the third step is see if they're a contest horse. And used to, when I was young, I would think, well, you know, you just make them to cut. Well, really, Buster used to say, we're called cutting horse trainers, but really we're just the middleman between the cow and the horse, and it's our job just to give them the opportunity and put them in the right spots to work the cow. There are horses out there that make good cutting horses that aren't great show horses, you know. Yeah. And then there's horses out there that you're working all year, 2 years, and you think, oh, this is just a horse, and they're show horses, you know. And you get to the show pen and those horses rise above, and that's why I think he really broke it down into those three steps. We rode everywhere. We were normally horseback before the sun come up, and 90% of the time after the sun went down. And it wasn't for everybody. I loved it. I cussed it some days too, but he also, like, and now I truly realize it now that I train, he used to always preach that it took a lot of slow hours to train a cutting horse, and any horse in general, honestly, but that was always a good one that sure is spot on. It's crazy just how knowledgeable he was on everything, but about the horses, you could ask him about anything and he could fix it. Any minute you got with him was a big minute, you know, and I think that's why he was such a big deal. He meant a lot to a lot of people, and yeah, he was just the best. I mean, truly was. I mean, without him and the opportunities he gave me, there's no way I'd be doing this today, you know. So yeah, he definitely, I think he hung the moon.